Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining the live stream today. Welcome to Sean Talks Cybersecurity. Today is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. And yeah, welcome back for another edition of the show. It's great to see a live audience here, and it's awesome to be here in front of you. I got some new studio monitors. I actually have this plugged into my mic now, so I can hear myself better whenever I'm talking to you guys, understand what I sound like. So yeah, this is some new stuff for me. Um, I'm just happy to be here today. Happy to be online and get the chance to talk with you all. So if this is your first time here on Sean Talk Cybersecurity, thanks for joining. Thank you so much. And how things work here, we go ahead and start with the news, cybersecurity news, and then we dive into some try hack me, and then maybe at the end I offer up some advice and just general commentary. Also, I have a live chat, and so I will do Q&A on the live chat. You can go ahead and hit that chat button anytime. Feel free to add any questions at any time, and I will be sure to get back to you as soon as I can. And so let's dive into the news. So, got a softball for you guys today. To start off, we have Engadget.com, not usually one we come from, but Engadget reports that the latest Android update includes live scam message detection. So this is pretty great for cybersecurity news. Essentially, what we have here is Google has just announced the 4 latest features of its Android 15 operating system. First up, Google Messages now uses AI to detect scam messages in real time. So scam detection will notify you if it detects suspicious writing patterns from the messages you're receiving and will give you the option to report and or block the conversation. For the privacy-minded, scam detection runs locally on your device, keeping your messages safe from prying eyes. So that's pretty cool. I think that that's actually a really cool feature. I'm not a huge fan of AI. I know AI is going to be like it is already everywhere, but AI, the fact that it actually will detect the scam messages in real time, it does make me wonder, sort of, if you're getting other messages, how that's going to affect privacy for the privacy conscious amongst us. But as far as the security and not having to worry about getting bombarded with scam messages, because older generations tends to have basically they get these messages that come into their phone, and then they don't know if it's legitimate or not, and so they definitely fall victim to some of these phishing attacks or smishing attacks. So always fun stuff on the end of these mobile devices that we all have in our pockets. So the article goes on to talk about some Find My Device features, and then some games, but we won't get into that here on this channel. Not really my niche. But yeah, essentially, thanks Jeremy Gann over at Engadget.com. Really appreciate your reporting on that. So that's our softball one for today. Let's dive into something a little bit more complex. So we have Phishers wreak havoc, disguising attack inside SharePoint on dark reading, reported by Elizabeth Montalbano. So, a complex campaign allows cyber attackers to take over Windows systems by combining, I think that she meant to say by combining a click fix style attack and sophisticated obfuscation that abuses legitimate Microsoft services. A complex phishing campaign is targeting Microsoft SharePoint accounts with malicious documents aimed at getting users to compromise themselves by deploying a PowerShell command. So, if you are going to get anything that shows up on your screen that shouldn't be there, that's your first sign to not be doing things. You should be like raising the flag up to your cybersecurity team. And if you don't have a cybersecurity team wherever you work, you should be raising the flag to whoever is in your IT department, whoever does anything involving your computers, because this shouldn't be happening. So let's continue on. The attack is a click fix style cyber attack campaign that ultimately aims to deploy the open source and powerful Havoc command and control, what we commonly call C2 framework, to gain full control over the targeted system. Havoc is a C2 framework akin to Cobalt Strike, Silver, and WinOS 4.0 that attackers use to gain control over targeted systems. It's both open source and available on GitHub, making it easy for threat actors to customize it and add advanced anti-detection capabilities, the researchers said. Okay. So I think this is easily preventable, in my opinion, but the fact is, it is there. And if you have a SharePoint site out there, just keep tabs on what's going on there. Let's continue on a little bit further and talk some more. So the threat actor hides each malware stage behind a SharePoint site and uses a modified version of Havoc Daemon in conjunction with the Microsoft Graph API to obscure C2 communications within trusted, well-known services. Very sophisticated. I think as long as you're following your basic cyber hygiene practices, which is just to make sure that your users aren't clicking on random links, you have some ways of protecting users from clicking on random things that come in their email, and you're just kind of keeping your systems patched, and you have some sort of endpoint discovery and reconnaissance, and you have some type of malware, anything like that where you're actually checking for malware, you should be okay. Obviously, sometimes these C2, they're not picked up by everything. Sometimes they're very sly and very sneaky. If you've ever watched John Hammond goes into some of that stuff in really deep detail. Highly recommend his channel. He's very good at this stuff. Way better than I am, but he's a very talented person. So let's dive into the next one here. We have nearly 12,000 API keys and passwords found in AI training data set by Ionut Iascu. I think that's how you say the name. I apologize. And my last name is Wolfslegel, so how much harder does that get? So, these people who have the difficult last names, I totally relate, and I'm sorry if I butcher it at all. I really apologize for that. But anyway, reported here on Bleeping Computer, close to 12,000 valid secrets that include API keys and passwords have been found in the Common Crawl dataset used for training multiple artificial intelligence models. The Common Crawl nonprofit organization maintains a massive open source repository of petabytes of web data collected since 2008 and is free for anyone to use. Because of the large data set, many artificial intelligence projects may rely, at least in part, on the digital archive for training large language models, including OpenAI, DeepSeek, Google Meta, and Anthropic Instability. So if you're using ChatGPT, just know that if you're in a business and you have your API keys or your secrets and your passwords somewhere, that these things that are going to be scraping for this data are going to grab them, or you might have just put them in there trying to work on a problem. Not good. You should always obfuscate your data, always try to make it so that way nothing is completely transparent to the AI. You shouldn't be putting in real data, in other words, because if you do, you're putting the risk that that's getting out there to some other organization, and AI poses a huge data security risk to many organizations right now. So my advice would be, don't be putting your API keys, your secrets, anything out there into these AI models, because obviously, as we can see here, 12,000 valid ones are out there right now for anybody to go grab, and that's not good at all. I think it's only a matter of time until we see the real problems from AI and how it's going to really affect different organizations who have gotten really quick into AI using these LLMs like ChatGPT or Gemini and putting all this data in there and being all about it. But then you reap what you sow. If you put all this information in there, and then a couple years down the line, all that stuff is going to be coming back to bite you, maybe because you might have personal PII or PHI, maybe even in some cases, which hopefully, I'll pray to God not. But if you don't know what those things are, PII is personally identifiable information. PHI is personal healthcare information, or private healthcare information. I'm sorry, but basically that whole thing is that you don't want any of that stuff leaking out. But unfortunately, it's probably happening. People are probably putting these things in AI, and sadly, it's just going to come back and really be bad for businesses later down the line. So that's all I have to say about that one. Let's move on to our last article of the day, which is from Bleeping Computer. Broadcom fixes 3 VMware 0-day exploited in attacks. This one by Sergio Gatlin. And so Broadcom warned customers today about 3 VMware 0 days tagged as exploited in attacks and reported by the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center. The vulnerabilities, CVE 2025-22224, 2025-22225, or I'm sorry, 222225, and then 222226, right? Impact VMware ESX products, including VMware ESXi, vSphere Workstation Fusion, Cloud Foundation, and Telco cloud platforms. Attackers with privileged administrator or root access can chain these flows to escape the virtual machine's sandbox. This is a situation where an attacker who has already compromised a virtual machine's guest OS and gained privileged access, administrator or root, could move into the hypervisor itself. And Broadcom has information to suggest that exploitation of these issues has occurred in the wild. So again, we've found this to be the case where people can get out of these VMs and wreak havoc on industries. If you have, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, VLANs. VLANs are very important. So if you have a set of VMs, if you have a set of servers that are running VMs, and you, let's say, even if you have like containers or anything like that, it could be anything. Containers, VMs, typical VMware ESX products, you should have that in a separate VLAN away from the rest of your network if you can manage that, because it's just one way of adding to that security layer that we talk about. And even then, if you can do VLAN or even a subnet, either one, at least that way you kind of are separating your traffic. VLAN would probably be better in this case. And so, yeah, essentially just keep an eye out for this one. Keep an eye out for these 3 CVEs. Patch. It says 0 days, so looks like there's not a patch out for it currently, I would imagine. But I would just keep an eye out for these if you are running VMware in your environment. Okay, and that's all I got for that one. Okay, now let's dive into some Try Hack Me after a very quick tea break. Cheers to you all. There's my my lovely cup of tea. Now, I have this really cool cup from my wife, and of course it gives out on me right before the stream, but it's really cool because it's black normally, and you can see I beat the hell out of it. It's pretty beat up. I don't know why I'm putting this in my microphone like that's a camera. Like, you can see that. I'll put it up here where you can actually see it. You can kind of see it. Like, it's really faint, but there's Nicolas Cage under there, and it says, "You're my national treasure." Yeah, that's kind of good. They can kind of get an idea of that, but it's black, and if you put hot tea or hot coffee or something in there, it actually has Nicolas Cage and comes out and says, "You're my national treasure." And I'm a big Nicolas Cage fan, so I my wife knows me, and she got me this awesome coffee mug, so I'm a lucky man that way. I have 5 kids too, and I'm a lucky man in many ways. I have 5 beautiful children. I have my beautiful wife, and here I am. I get to actually talk to you guys all online here and educate on cybersecurity and just talk about cybersecurity. So, yeah, I'm a very blessed guy. Okay, let's dive into some Try Hack Me. We have DNS in detail. So let's learn how DNS works and how it helps you to access internet services, as Try Hack Me puts it. So what is DNS? Let's start off with this before we dive into what Try Hack Me has to say. When I first got into cybersecurity, DNS and DHCP confused me very much because, well, they both start off with D, and even if you're not dyslexic or you have issues with kind of keeping things separate in your brain, I find that DNS and DHCP sort of, for some reason, always thought them to be the same, but they're not. DNS is different than DHCP. So let's dive into it, see what Try Hack Me says, so I don't confuse anybody. DNS is Domain Name System, and this provides a simple way for us to communicate with devices on the internet without remembering complex numbers. So I'm going to say that one more time. It provides a simple way for us to communicate with devices on the internet without remembering complex numbers. You can think about it as a phone book, basically. When you go to google.com, for example, you type in google.com. You don't type out the IP address of Google and every single time. You don't type out whatever the IP is for Google, 8.8.8.8. As we've talked about many times before in these live streams, it is the DNS for Google, but for google.com, it might be a completely different IP. So we don't type all that out. Just like how if you're looking up a phone book, if you're looking in a phone book, for those of us who remember what phone books are, I mean, I don't know, maybe they still make phone books. I don't know. I haven't seen one in a while. But if you have if you have a phone book, you look up the person's name and then you can find their number attached to it, right? It's the same thing. So instead of typing out that IP, you actually you say google.com, and then boom, you're on Google, right? And so DNS actually allows that to happen. So much like every house has a unique address for sending mail directly to it, every computer on the internet has its own unique address to communicate with it, called an IP address. An IP address looks like the following: 104.26.10.229. So again, these are our 4 octets. We have this first, second, third, and fourth. 4 sets of digits ranging from 0 to 255, separated by a period or a dot. When you want to visit a website, it's not exactly convenient to have to remember the complicated set of numbers, and that's where DNS helps. So it actually gives a really cool example here. It says instead of trying to remember 104.26.10.229, you can remember tryhackme.com instead. So 104.26.10.229 is actually tryhackme. So just for fun, let's actually see what happens if we actually type that in, so I can show you in real time that this is not just some random thing. So yeah, Cloudflare doesn't like that, but no, I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, so I guess it's not going to allow me to do that. But normally, sorry about that. This is live, so things happen in real time. But essentially, normally, if I didn't have Cloudflare on my network, it would allow me to do that. But I can't do it in real time, so I apologize for that. But if you try it out on your own and you go ahead and proceed, you should be able to get in there and actually see tryhackme.com come on. So the DNS stands for Domain Name System. Domain Name System. Okay. I'm not sure what happened here. I hope I'm still live here. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. If I'm having any audio issues or if I'm not coming through for anybody, please let me know in the chat. The chat is live, so if I'm having any issues, I'm not sure what's going on my end, but it just didn't seem like it wanted to allow me to do that. So, an unknown error has occurred. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, well, we already know what that is. Let's move ahead. And we'll go ahead and come back to that. I'll answer that after all this is over. We can actually still do all the exercises, even though it's not working. Okay, so domain hierarchy. We have a TLD is the most right-hand part of a domain name. So, for example, the tryhackme.com TLD is .com. There are 2 types of TLD. So you have a generic top level and then a CCTLD, which is a country code top level domain. Historically, a GTLD was meant to tell the user the domain name's purpose. For example, a .com would be for commercial purposes, .org for an organization, .edu for education, and .gov for government. Okay, right. So the top level domain is just your .com. It's the ending there. I do not have a Discord group. I saw your chat there. Thank you so much, Sanam. And let me know if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. I definitely try to pronounce people's names right. But I don't have a Discord, but I would like to get one at some point. It's in the works. I will keep you updated. Okay, so basically if you have a .edu, a .com, a .gov, whatever you have there, that's your TLD, top level domain. So .club, .online, .website, right? Second level domain. So taking tryhackme.com as an example, the .com part is the TLD, and then the tryhackme is the second level domain. So when registering a domain name, the second level domain is limited to 63 characters, and the TLD can only use A to Z, 0 through 9, and hyphens. And then the last thing is the subdomain. So you can actually have a subdomain sits on the left-hand side of the second level domain using a period to separate it. For example, in the name admin.tryhackme.com, the admin part is the subdomain. So let's go over these one more time. So admin.tryhackme.com, that would be our subdomain. The second level domain would be the tryhackme part, and then our top level domain, TLD, is the actual .com part. So useful for things like DNS to keep this stuff straight in your mind. Let's see if this allows us to continue with it. So we know that this should be 63. and it's still not letting us. So I don't know what's going on with TryHackMe. It's not on my end, but hey, we're gonna keep on going ahead with it. So which of the following characters cannot be used in a subdomain? Which of the following characters cannot be used in a subdomain? So subdomain, we are allowed to use, let's see, we can use A through Z, 0 through 9, and hyphens. So this is 0 through 9, this is A through Z, and this is a hyphen, so we know we can't use this underscore here. So the underscore would be where we would want to make sure that that's not in our subdomain. What is the maximum length of a domain name? Domain names can be 63 characters, I want to say. Okay, so total domain name is limited to 63 characters. Actually, no, I'm sorry, but the length must be kept to 253 characters or less. So that would be 253 for this answer. And then what type of TLD is .co.uk? That would be our top level domain. No, Sanam. I'm not actually going to do the new certification, not yet. I do want to do it. It looks awesome, and I want to get to that eventually. But right now, in my personal career, I've been doing this for about 11 years now. I have my SSCP, and well, actually, not to kind of get away from what we're talking about right now, but basically, eventually I would like to get it only because of the fact that like it's real world stuff, which is pretty cool. Like I've said in my past live streams, you have the SSCP and some other ones as well, like Security Plus, and those tend to be a little less hands-on, and they're more like quizzes, which is good for theory but not good for real world. But thankfully I have actually a lot of real world experience from working for several different organizations. But I think it'd be good to actually get in there and see what it's like to do that. So I might take it. I might take it at some point. So good question. Thank you so much. Okay, so record types. So we have DNS record types. A record. These records resolve to IPv4 addresses. For example, 104.26.10.229. Your quad A record, AAAA record. These records resolve to IPv6. So you have I'm not even going to try to say this, but basically, if you are watching me right now, you can see where I have my mouse highlighted here, but that's an IPv6, and you can see why most of us who work in this, it is a pain in the neck to try to talk to somebody about IPv6. And then you have your CNAME records. These records resolve to another domain name. For example, TryHackMe's online shop has the subdomain store.tryhackme.com, which returns a CNAME record of shops.shopify.com. So you can have it actually take and send you over to another thing. So another domain, right? So store.tryhackme.com then sends you over to shops.shopify.com. And that's how CNAMEs work. So then you have your MX records, which are records that resolve to the address of the servers that handle the email for the domain you're querying. For example, an MX record response for TryHackMe would look something like alt1.aspmx.i.google.com. These records come with a priority flag, and they tell the clients in which order to try the servers. This is perfect for the main server, if the main server goes down, an email needs to be sent to a backup server. Okay. And then TXT records are free text fields where any text-based data can be stored. So TXT records have multiple uses, but some common ones can be to list servers that have the authority to send an email on behalf of the domain. So what type of record would be used to advise where to send email? That would be your MX records. That's for your email, so keep that in mind. And then what type of record handles IPv6 records? That would be our quad A record, if you remember here. So, and if you just remember that A is easier than quad A, then that's kind of a way to keep it straight in your brain. A is for IPv4, quad A is for your IPv6. Okay, so moving on here, let's see. We got making a request. What happens when you make a DNS request? When you request a domain name, your computer first checks its local cache to see if you've previously looked up the address recently. If not, a request to your recursive DNS server will be made. And then a recursive DNS server is usually provided by your ISP, but you can also choose your own. This server also has a local cache of recently looked up domain names. If a result is found locally, this is sent back to your computer and your request ends here. This is, they put in parentheses, this is common for popular and heavily requested services such as Google, Facebook, Twitter, or X. If the request cannot be found locally, a journey begins to find the correct answer. Okay, so starting right here, this is you, number one. It goes out to a recursive DNS server. You're looking for google.com or joescrabshack.com. I don't know, just anything, right? It goes out to this recursive DNS server. And then number three, it goes out to a root DNS server, which searches basically the root DNS server is a lot bigger than like your recursive DNS server. So let's talk about it right here from what TryHackMe has to say. The root DNS server acts as the DNS backbone of the internet. Their job is to redirect you to the correct top-level domain server depending on your request. If, for example, you request tryhackme.com, the root server will recognize the top-level domain of .com and refer you to the correct top-level domain server that deals with the .com addresses. And then you have your step 4, which is your authoritative DNS. So the TLD server holds records for where to find the authoritative server to answer the DNS request. The authoritative server is often also known as the name server for the domain. So for example, the name server for TryHackMe is kip.ns.cloudflare.com. This is where it's hosted out of. And so you have uma.ns.cloudflare.com. You'll often find multiple name servers for domain names to act as a backup in case one goes down. An authoritative DNS server is the server that is responsible for storing the DNS records, right? So this step right here, this is what we're focused on right now. And that server is then for a particular domain name and where any updates to your domain name DNS records would be made. Depending on the record type, the DNS record is then sent back to the recursive DNS server, where a local copy will be cached for future requests and then relayed back to the original client that made the request. DNS records all come with a TTL or a time to live value, and this value is a number represented in seconds that the response should be saved for locally until you have to come back and look at it up again. Okay, so what field specifies how long a DNS record should be cached for? Okay, so that would be our authoritative, I believe. What field specifies? That would be our TTL, I'm sorry. That belongs in the authoritative DNS, but it's actually our TTL. TTL is time to live. What type of DNS server is usually provided by your ISP? That would be our recursive DNS. That's provided by our ISP, right? Oops, sorry about that. Okay. And what type of server holds all the records for a domain? So to hold all the records for the domain, that would be our root DNS server. The TLD server holds records for where to find the authoritative server to answer the DNS request. And so our root DNS server right here, I apologize. The root servers act as the DNS backbone, right? And so the top level domain, I just want to make sure here. What type of server holds all the records? Yeah, perks of being live. So I apologize, everybody. But basically, it's either authoritative or root, and I don't know right now because I can't really type it out. But yeah, so it should be authoritative because that's the right amount of characters. But like I said, TryHackMe is being goofy right now with me. I don't know what's going on, but I can't actually get it to submit the responses. Okay, and then let's see if it'll actually let us do this. It might not. Okay, so using the website on the right, we can build requests to make DNS queries and view the results. The website will also show you the command you'd need to run on your own computer if you wished to make the request yourself. So, what is the CNAME of shop.website.thm? Okay, so we want to look up the CNAME. So we can see here, this is actually the real command that we would type. nslookup -- type equals CNAME, and then whatever the website is. So So we want to know the shop, right? Because that's our subdomain. So we send that request, and so we can see here that it should be shops.myshopify.com, and that would be our CNAME. Okay. Let's see. It might let us. I don't think it's going to, but we're gonna try. Yeah, again. So I apologize that it's not allowing us, but essentially, if you go out here to try Hack Me and you give it a go, just having some technical issues here on the stream today. So I apologize for all that, but I appreciate you all sticking with me for the live stream here and allowing me to go over this Try Hack Me room with you. Basically, if you don't take anything else from this today, just know that DNS is extremely important in your career for a cybersecurity career or a networking professional career, depending on which path you want to go down, or even a systems administrator or sysadmin for short. No matter which way you go in your career here, you're going to need to know what DNS is. DNS, you can think about it like this. If you imagine in your head a phone book, you look up the different names of whoever it is you're looking up, right? So you could say, I want to know who Joe Schmo is. And then you say, okay, I see his number, and then boom, I looked him up. But DNS kind of automates that for you. Basically, you kind of do that in reverse. So you say, I want to look up google.com, and then when you type in google.com, it takes all the heavy lifting out of it for you. And then once you've done that, you actually get your website back, right? So you don't actually have to go through the painstaking time of keeping track of all the different numbers that are associated with any website that you try to get out to. You can build out local DNS. You can go ahead and change your DNS, whatever you have. So for me, for my own house, my DNS is 1.1.1.1 because that is Cloudflare's. That's why I was having some issues there a little bit ago. But you can go out and actually look up different DNS. You can use Google's 8.8.8.8. And basically that changes your, coming back up here for a second, that will actually change your recursive DNS server right here, because you're actually taking the one that's provided by your ISP and you're changing that over to whatever it is you want it to be. So 1.1.1.1, and then your root DNS server, and then authoritative. So that is all I have for today. Kind of a short one for today. I don't have very much else to talk about. I'm definitely open for any questions. If anybody has any questions, I can see the chat live on my end right now. Sanam, I see you say, right, I agree, and I'm planning toward that certification as well. Yeah, definitely appreciate your 2 cents on that. I think that it's going to be a good certification. I think it's definitely, it's nice that it's hands-on. That's the biggest thing, is that if you don't have a ton of hands-on experience in the real world and you haven't actually worked in a SOC analyst position, it's going to give you that in a lab environment sort of, and basically get you job ready, which is the most important thing, because these days, people don't care about slips of paper. They don't care about college degrees. They want to know if you actually have done the thing. So that's worth its weight in gold. The only thing I'll say about that the new certification out by Try Hack Me is the only thing that goes against it right now is the fact that it doesn't have a lot of people out there who have done it. So you might find if you're doing a job interview, sometimes people are probably going to be like, well, what is that? What does that actually mean? I don't know what that is. I've never heard of it before. Whereas if you have like something like a CISSP on your resume, most people know what a CISSP is. And so they're just going to be like, oh, this guy's got a CISSP. I'm going to hire him right away, right? So not that they're not going to check your skills and ask you complex questions during an interview, but basically if that thing just doesn't have the notoriety to it yet, and so it will eventually. And I think that more people need to get it, and so that way it can build out that notoriety. Okay, so that's all I have for the live stream today. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Really appreciate it. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Share this with your friends if you found it useful, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Sorry for the technical issues, but I will see you tomorrow. Peace.